So let's bring in now Democratic Senator-elect Adam Schiff of California, who will be sworn in later today. Senator-elect Schiff served on the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol. And, sir, I'd love your thoughts on being sworn in today amidst a cloud of what President-elect Trump said about members of the January 6th committee, which you were one.
Well, I'm excited to be sworn in today. I think the Senate is a place where you can still seek out people across the aisle and really get things done. And there's a lot we need to get done for the country and for my home state of California. But in terms of the president's threats, I would say a couple of things. First, all of us that worked on the January 6th committee are proud of the work that we did. We exposed one of the darkest chapters of our history when a president incited a violent attack on the Capitol to try to stop the peaceful transfer of power. The vast majority of our witnesses were Republicans. Some of them were high-ranking Republicans in the Trump administration who testified under oath and in public hearings so that the country could hear and see and learn about what took place on that awful day, a really important form of congressional accountability. So we're proud of what we did. But I do think to underscore the point you were all just making, this is not just about retribution against those of us on the committee. This is about sending a message that no one better hold him to account in his second term. No one better look at what he does, do their congressional job, that he is intent on trying to break down these checks and balances in our system. That's where the danger lies, more so than to the members of the committee. I think the American people are very concerned about crime. They want an FBI director and an attorney general to deal with fentanyl and deal in California with smash and grab robberies. This is not what they're looking for, to turn the agencies into some vehicle of political retribution.
One of the things that he accused the committee of is illegally destroying records, among other things, along with saying that y'all should go to jail. What's your response?
You know, I've seen him make that allegation before, and candidly, I don't know what the heck he's talking about, whether this is some crazy conspiracy theory that grew up online or whether it's just something he's making up. But it's completely without merit and just, I think, another one of his baseless attacks on the work of the committee. His real grudge at the end of the day is he was exposed, and some of his own very top people held him most accountable, testified against him. And this is really where he's coming from. That and his other grievance, which I've heard him repeat many, many times, is that he's never got enough credit for the size of the crowd on January 6th, which you have to live in, I think, a pretty warped world to think that's the most important point about January 6th that people are missing. But this is just one of his meritless complaints, and I really don't want to speculate about where it comes from.
Mr. Senator-elect, you, of course, for many years have warned that Donald Trump is a threat to the nation's democracy. You've done so in office. You did so during your campaign. You were victorious. But for so many Democrats, that wasn't a winning issue this time around. We know Vice President Harris lost. The Democrats, were defeated, lost control of the Senate. They were not able to reclaim the House. Do you, as Americans, voted for things like the economy? They voted about the border, the inflation, things of that nature. Do you worry that this has lost its resonance? Have people begun to tune out that issue, which I know you feel is important? So how do you then break through?
Well, I would say you're right. I think the issue in the election was the economy. That was very clear to me in California. I'm sure it was true in every other state as well. And in fact, most of my campaign was not about Trump. It was about the economy. It was about trying to address the high cost of housing and the high cost of child care, building more housing, addressing homelessness, addressing public safety concerns. This was really what I campaigned on. And I think those that were successful likewise were focused on the economic issues. We have to, I think, as a Democratic Party, come to grips with the fact that many working families decided they had more confidence in the Republicans than the Democrats at this moment in time. Now, that, I think, was part of really a global wave against the incumbents, left, right, or center. But nevertheless, we have been losing working people for many years. And I think that we're going to have to do a much better job connecting with working people. We're going to have policy prescriptions that are bolder and simpler and clearer if we're going to recapture the majority in the Senate and in the House and the White House.
Senator-elect Adam Schiff of California, congratulations on your swearing in today, and thank you very much for coming on the show this morning.
Great to be with you.
All right, take care. David Rode, you heard about the goals and the hopes that incoming Senator Schiff has for the future. That up against what we were talking about earlier, the threats against all those who served on the January 6th Select Committee. How will those balance out, do you think? And what are you going to be watching for?
I thought, Jonathan's question was great about how you make this resonate. I think what we're talking about is what's going to happen is more chaos, more legal litigation as they sort of go ahead with these. I think there will be criminal investigations. And I think it's a diversion. I think it will distract the FBI and the Justice Department from fighting fentanyl, for fighting crime, for countering, Chinese and Russian espionage in the country. So I don't think there'll be a, immediate total takeover of the FBI and the Justice Department for Trump's purposes. There are checks on that, but it will be deadlock and division and distraction. And that's, we'll see how it plays out. And it'll be up to voters to decide if that's what they want in future elections.
For sure. NBC News national security editor David Rode, thank you very much. His new book is entitled Where Tyranny Begins, the Justice Department, the FBI, and the War on Democracy. It's on sale right now. Up